to this Inversions Workshop. My name is Sonia. I'm a certified yoga teacher, and I will be guiding you throughout this practice. The workshop is divided into 4 sections: warm-up, strength, balance, and recovery. Depending on your level of practice already, feel free to take the whole class or to move along in sections. And be sure to allow for rest so that your muscles can regenerate. I also recommend practicing meditation on the side, specifically meditations that focus on concentration, your drishti, finding that point of focus. Because in handstand, we really want to be able to center ourselves in order to find balance, our ability to understand where our body is in space. All in all, listen to your body, move at your own pace, and ultimately have fun. So let's get started. We're going to begin in a comfortable seated position, cross-legged, sitting on your heels or a block, or you can also sit in a chair. Let's begin with our wrists, taking one hand over the other and moving in circles. Switching directions. Of course, in handstand, it's not our natural body position to be upside down, and there is a lot of force moving through the joints of the wrists. So it's very important to warm them up. Wonderful. Placing our hands on the mat, we'll begin to move back and forth, exploring the range of motion that we are currently exhibiting. How far forward can you move? And back. Throughout this workshop, if you do feel any sensations of pain, numbness, tingling, please safely exit the pose or exercise. Now turn your wrists to the side, and we'll explore moving laterally. One at a time, if it's within your range of motion, turn your fingertips towards your knees, and we'll sit back slowly, beginning to stretch the flexor muscles of our inner forearms. Let's pause at our limit here for a static stretch. And we'll release. One at a time, we'll flip our palm to place the top of our hand on the mat. Now slide your hand forward so the skin is moving back, adding a nice stretch now to the extensor muscles. Play around with making a fist with this hand and extending. So fist and extend, fist and extend. Awesome, shake it out and we'll move on to the other hand. Top placed on the mat, slide your hand forward and feel that nice stretch. Begin to make a fist and extend. fist. Awesome. Let's shake it out. Clasp your fingers together, bringing your arms overhead. Tuck your ribs in. Lift your shoulders up and down, up and down. Shoulder elevation, shoulder depression. You can also flip your wrists. Beginning to notice how that feels within the shoulders. It might be a little awkward at first, and that's okay. With practice, everything becomes a little easier. We'll do 3, 2, and 1. Release. Grab a strap if you have one nearby or something similar. If you don't have a strap, try shoulder circles like this. Place your hands wide enough on the strap to be able to move it overhead and behind you towards your lower back. Moving overhead and forward. Starting to lubricate the rotator cuffs in the shoulders. Keeping a slight bend in the elbows as to not overextend. And pause when the strap is in front of you. Taking your right arm, we'll move it over our head. And then taking our left arm, we'll move it back in front. Left arm moves overhead. Right arm moves back. Right arm moves overhead. And left returns. See if you can make this one fluid motion. Lift your arms overhead. We'll move side to side, seeing how low our hand can reach towards the mat. Beginning to stretch our oblique muscles, the side portions of our abs, along with many of the muscles that connect around our ribs. Squeeze your belly here so that your core can maintain the posture of your upper body. We're going to find our tabletop. You can pad up your knees with a blanket. Your shoulders are directly above your wrists, so your hands are shoulder width apart, and your hips are directly above your knees. Let's talk about how we want to position our hands in the handstand. Your fingers are spread wide, knuckles slightly bent as if you're gripping the ground. Your wrist crease is in line with your mat. You have equal force in all portions of your hands, your fingertips, your wrist, the middle portion of your hand, so you're not putting all your force in the delicate wrists. There is a slight micro bend in the elbows to allow for a little bit of movement and wobble, which is okay in handstand. It's your body finding equilibrium and balance. We're gonna protract our shoulders as if we're pushing the floor away. Our shoulder blades move away from each other, and our core is strong. It is engaged. Feel free to stay in tabletop or step your feet back into a plank. And we're going to begin with scapular push-ups. So pushing the floor away, we're protracting our shoulders, and then we're relaxing by dropping our chest. Up and down. Equal weight throughout your hands. Up and down. Up and down. Your body is a straight line from your head to your heels. So if your hips are too low, raise them by engaging your core. If your hips are too high, go ahead and lower them. 3, 2, and 1. Lower your knees. We'll find a seat, shake out our wrists. Walk your hands forward, keeping the hips above the knees. Begin to lower your chest for puppy pose. This is a great pose to be able to find flexibility in the shoulders so that you're able to move into various inversions. Dropping your forehead on the mat. Turn your triceps in and lengthen from the shoulders as if there is a string pulling your tailbone up to the sky. We'll start to find circles here by lifting our chest. Switch directions. Okay, back into tabletop. Taking the left hand behind our head, tapping the right arm, and opening up. Feel free to also balance on your fist if this is a little bit too much pressure on the wrists. Moving from the core and upper body. Be sure to find your breath with each movement. Breathing in and breathing out. Switch sides. We're targeting the serratus anterior, the muscles that move over our ribs to allow our upper body to twist. Also responsible for holding our body stable in a handstand. Amazing work. Let's go ahead and find ourselves on our belly. All right, we'll move into a plank variation, placing our forearms on the mat parallel to one another, about shoulder width apart. Move your hands forward just a touch. We'll go ahead and protract our shoulder blades, moving them away from one another. Keeping the knees on the mat, begin to lift the hips and really engage your core. You want to squeeze your rib cage around your spine, creating a strong, sturdy container. Hold and squeeze. Shaking is okay. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lower. Take a rest. With or without blocks, place your fingertips in line with your chest. Wide arm cobra. Begin to lift the upper body using your core and lower. Lift and lower. If you are feeling tightness in your lower back, move your hands forward. Now play around with dropping the right shoulder and opening up the left. Then dropping the left shoulder, opening up the right, a slight twist. You can place your hands flat on the ground here. Placing our hands near our chest, elbows to our ribs. Lift up into downward facing dog. Maybe stretch here for a second, pressing into your hands, fingers wide, shoulders away from ears. Turning your triceps in, chest reaches towards the thighs. Then walk towards your hands. We'll sit back and transition into reverse tabletop. Hands are behind us, fingers pointed towards our heels. Feet flat on the mat, so your shoulder blades are coming together. We're going to squeeze our belly and lift up our hips. Squeeze the glutes. You can feel this in your shoulders and lower. Add a slight bend in your elbows so that we activate the triceps. Building strength in the triceps is very important for headstands. Move within your range of motion. You don't have to go all the way up to the top. Always listen to your body. We're getting deep into the anterior deltoids, the front portion of our shoulders. For 3, 2, and 1. Lower all the way down. Hug around your shins, stretch out the wrists. Beautiful. To complete our warm-up, make your way onto your back, taking your arms in a cactus shape, so 90-degree bend at the elbows. We'll touch our hands together and then lower them as much as we can. Finding mobility in the shoulder blades. See if you can tuck your tailbone, so moving your hips up so that your low back is flat on the mat. Three, 2, and 1. Beautiful. Okay, that is it for the warm-up. We'll now move into the second portion, which is strength. Beginning to prep our core, we'll find a crow pose on our back. So what you want to do is take your hands right out in front of you, reaching towards the sky. Your wrists flexed. And take your knees one by one, scrunching your core and trying to reach those knees towards the triceps or your armpits. And hold. Squeeze your core, flex those shoulders, protract the shoulders. It's as if you're holding crow pose on your back. And find a steady breath. Squeeze even more, bring those knees closer to your armpits for 3, 2, 1, and release. We're gonna come up into a seated L, lifting our arms overhead, unflare the ribs so that you have a straight upper body. This will also contract your core, so we're strong in the upper body. And we're gonna hold this. Try to relax your shoulders away from your ears. You're welcome to also sit on a block or a blanket to lift your hips higher for a little bit of extra support. Really be mindful here of your core, mind-muscle connection. You're squeezing and you're bringing your awareness to this area. Hold for 3, 2, and 1. Staying in this position, to keep a slight bend in your knee, begin to lift your left leg off of the mat. Moving from the psoas muscle, that muscle that connects your thighs, your lower body essentially, to your core, your upper body. We're gonna do 10 on each side. Switch sides. Feel free to rest in between, stretch out your psoas a little bit. Back into that L shape. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, you got this. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now see if you can lift both legs at the same time. We're going to try for 5. I like to bring my hands slightly in front on my fingertips for some extra support. Awesome. And if you're really feeling spicy, let's try for an L hold. I like to use blocks. Engage your core and lift and lower. Take a moment to breathe. Maybe find some water. Next is boat pose. So we're gonna lean back. We're essentially in that same L shape, just tipped over. You can keep your hands on the mat or behind your thighs. Your shins are parallel to the mat or straight. Your core is strong. And we're gonna move side to side for 10. And lower. Hug your thighs. Back into that boat pose, but we're doing a different variation. This time we can keep our hands on the mat. See if you can straighten your legs as much as possible. And we're going to move in circles. Further strengthening the psoas muscles, which are essential for being able to kick up into a handstand. Reverse direction. And lower. Let's go back onto our backs. One leg at a time. Feel free to use your strap. Clasping behind our thighs. We'll do a little stretch in the hamstrings. Now extending your arms straight, lift your shoulders and upper back off of the mat and do little shimmies. And lower, clasping fingers once more. Maybe we stretch a little deeper. Lower that left leg. We'll raise the right leg and do the same thing. First with a static hold for the hamstrings. You want to feel the stretch in the middle portion of your hamstring. So if you're too much into your glutes or behind the knee, you're pushing a little bit too far here. Flexing our feet. Lift up and shimmy. We're activating our transverse abdominal muscles, the deepest portion of our core. And lower. Breathe in. Breathe out. And lower that leg. Take 2 breaths to find your center once again. Okay. Now, we're going to lift our arms overhead off of the mat, unflare your ribs, tuck your tailbone so we have that strong core. Activate your shoulders, and then lift your legs about a couple inches off the mat as well. Lifting the upper back and shoulders. Shaking is okay. Somatic release. Keep breathing. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Feel free to pause at any time to continue working with a certain exercise or to rest. From here, take your feet, place them flat on the mat. Left arm goes overhead, knees fall over to the left-hand side. We're gonna roll over our shoulder and find ourselves on our bellies. Placing our forearms on the mat, the upper arms are hugging our chest. You're gonna take your left hand and bring it towards the right elbow. Right hand comes towards the left elbow. Gonna lift our hips up into a plank. Twist over to the side and open up. Hip dip and down. Other side. We're rolling onto the sides of our feet here. Hip dip and back. Strengthening our obliques. Keep those hips lifted. Dip, back up. Squeezing the side portions of our abs as we lift. And lower the knees. Find a child's pose. Okay, moving back forward slowly, coming out of child's pose, lowering onto our belly. Finding your cactus arms, we are going to do a locust pose variation. So we're lifting our thighs and our legs off of the mat, along with our upper body. The core is not just the front portion of your abs, it's also the back. To squeeze our core, lift up and hold. You can also play around with moving your arms up and forward. Gaze down as to not compress your neck. Lift up a little bit higher. Hold for 3, 2, and 1. Rest. Bring a cheek to the mat or on top of your hands. Let's do that one more time. Engage your quads, engage your core, lift your upper body, squeeze your shoulder blades together, gaze is down. You are strong in this pose. You are strong. Keep breathing. For 3, lift a little higher. 2, and 1, other cheek to the mat. Okay, let's lift up, bringing our elbows, hugging our ribs. Our forearms are parallel and hands gripping the mat. Tuck your back toes. Begin to lift your hips up, walking the feet forward slightly for dolphin. We're going to move dynamically here from plank, lowering, and up back into dolphin. Turning the triceps in. It's kind of like a downward dog. We're pushing into our forearms to activate those shoulders, lifting up from the hips and lower. This might feel very awkward if you're new to it, and that's okay. Just move within your range of motion, and you're going to feel that burn in the shoulders and the upper arms. Four, 3, 2, and 1. Lower the knees. Take a quick child's pose. Slowly coming out of child's pose, placing our hands on the mat, tucking back toes, lifting up into down dog. Walk your feet a little bit closer than a usual down dog. Knees can be bent. Protract those shoulders and bend your elbows. The elbows are moving outwards as to not strain the wrists, and for focus on the shoulders, our upper back. We'll do 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lower the knees. Sit back on the heels. That is it for the strength portion. Let's move into balance. Moving into the more difficult inversions, you want to start off with crow pose to see if you're able to find balance, focus, and if you have enough stability and strength in your core and arms to be able to hold yourself off of the mat, only on your hands. Beginner version for crow pose is keeping your forearms on the mat, parallel to one another, bending at the elbows, and trying to bring your knees to your triceps. Bending, bending, lifting one leg at a time, squeezing the core. Or we'll go on to full crow. If you have a little bit of fear, as the mental game can also impact our inversions, you can place a pillow here just in case as you're learning. Okay, a good preparation stretch for crow is Malasana squat. So your feet are pointed 45 degrees out, slightly wider than hips width, and you're sitting back into a squat, opening your knees up, lifting from your chest, raising the pelvic floor. From here, we're going to place our hands on the mat, shoulder width apart. Lift the hips up, keeping the knees bent. The knees are reaching towards the armpits so that your shins can rest on your triceps, or the knees will hug the triceps on the side. It's normal for there to be a little bit of pain and pressure on the triceps, but over time, your body does get used to it. All right, reaching into those triceps, leaning slightly forward. Maybe you just lift one leg at a time, and you're just starting out here. Bending the elbows 90 degrees like chaturanga. One leg lifts at a time. Shifting forward, finding balance, gripping the ground. Maybe both legs raise. Heels to your glutes. Find your drishti, find your focus. You can pause the video here, play around with crow. Once you've nailed crow, we'll move on to the next, which is headstand. If you have a block, good preparation for headstand is holding the block in between your hands like this, keeping your elbows near your ribs like chaturanga, maintaining that 90-degree angle, and lifting overhead and down. Now as you do this, your ribs are pulled down and your tailbone is tucked in. Holding that core strong, lift up and down. I clasp my fingers together, and this portion is going to be on the back of my head. In headstand, it's the top of your head that is on the mat, not your forehead, not the back of your head. Placing my hands on the mat, the elbows are in line with our shoulders, so shoulder width apart. I like to place the top of my head on the mat. Then we engage our shoulders, protract them like we've been practicing. Step one is tucking our toes and simply just lifting, holding this, squeezing our core and our shoulders. Be mindful that most of the pressure is within the upper back and the shoulders, not the neck. Step 2 is walking your hips over your shoulders, walking back. Step 3, I recommend doing against a wall, just for some support and ease of mind. Maybe we lift one leg. Step 4, we lift both knees. See if you can bring your hips over your shoulders, finding a balance. And step 5, we extend all the way. Engaging our core, our quads, our glutes, and shoulders, full body. And lower one leg at a time in a split. Finding child's pose to rest the head. Go ahead and pause the video to practice as much as you like. We will now move on to forearm balance. If you have a strap, make a loop, tighten the loop and place it just above your elbows, enough so that your arms are in chaturanga, hugging your ribs, maintaining shoulder width apart. We're going to place our forearms on the mat, and just like headstand, walking our feet up until our hips are above our shoulders so that we're stacking them in a straight line. Push out of your forearms like we did in dolphin. We're going to lift up into that dolphin pose. Your head is off the mat and your gaze is in between your forearms, gazing forward. Lift your hips above your shoulders as much as you can. I also recommend doing this against a wall. Kick up one leg at a time. Engage your core, glutes, and quads, leg muscles to hold yourself steady. Pincha, amazing. And lower down one leg at a time in a split. All right, let's move on to the final pose, handstand. I definitely recommend practicing against a wall, but before we begin, let's go over our alignment once more. Bring your hands overhead in a handstand position. We're going to engage our shoulders, but move them away from our ears. Take your ribs, unflare them. Take your tailbone, tuck it inwards so that your whole upper body is straight. And just hold this position standing. You can even do it against a wall so that you find perfect alignment. Now this isn't as easy as it looks, but you want to hold it for several minutes, practicing and allowing your body to memorize the correct posture. That way, when you kick up into handstand, your body will remember how to balance and how to remain in a straight line. Go ahead and lower down. You can start with bunny hops. So getting in handstand position, kicking up with both legs, making sure that we land softly on our feet. Next, moving into our handstand against the wall, kicking up with one leg. Alternating feet. Once you feel comfortable practicing against the wall for several sessions, you can move slightly away from the wall and try a full handstand. Hands on the mat, gripping the floor. Wrist creases are in line. Equal weight distribution throughout the hands. Bring the shoulder blades away from each other. Slight micro bend in the elbows. Lift up into a downward dog. Walk your feet as close as you can to your hands. First, you want to kick up into a split to stack your hips above your shoulders, and then bring your legs together. That is some fantastic work, my friends. Let's go ahead and cool down, rest, and restore our body after all that fire and hard work. Go ahead and find a child's pose. Knees wide, toes touching, sitting back on our heels. Arms forward as we rest our forehead on the mat and decompress our spine. Take some slow, deep breaths here. Release tension in your neck. Consciously relax your shoulders, your hips, and your core. Let your belly just relax. Gently begin to lift your hips, bringing your knees in, hips width apart, and back so that we can fall into our puppy pose. Let the chest fall heavy. Shoulders are relaxed away from the ears. Lift your chest slightly. Slide your left arm under the right. Fall onto the outer shoulder and rest the side of your head on the mat. You can also place a pillow under your shoulder and head for a little elevation. And relax. Feel the stretch in your right shoulder. And your left. Tapping into the rhomboids, the trapezius muscles. Slowly come out and move to the other side. Taking a deep breath in and slowly breathe out. falling deeper into the stretch. Begin to unravel. Walk your hands towards your body, keeping your hips stacked over your knees. Round your back. Try to bring your forehead to your knees as close as you can, and then place the back portion of the top of your head on the mat. Arms reaching towards your feet for rabbit pose. Decompressing the neck. Lengthening the spine. Feel free to also keep your hands on the mat as to not put too much pressure onto the head. Okay, sit back onto your heels. Interlace your fingers and stretch those shoulder blades, rounding your back. And opening up the other way. We're going to flip our forearms, gently grab your pinky and pull it back. Switch to your ring finger. Middle finger. Pointer finger. And your thumb. Other hand. Pinky. Ring finger. Middle finger. Pointer. And thumb. Bending the right knee, bringing our foot towards our left glute, and stepping the left foot, the outside of the right knee. We'll raise our right arm, left arm straightens our spine behind our back. We'll move into a twist. Switch sides. Left heel to right glute, right foot outside of the left knee. Right arm pushes our spine to lengthen as our left arm hooks and we twist. Breathe in, breathe out. And find our center. Grab your blocks, or if you have a pillow, place it right behind you. As for the blocks, they're going to go on your shoulder blades and your head. And you're going to open up your chest. Deep breath in. And on your out breath, release all the tension. Relax your upper body. Lift yourself up softly. And that's it, my friends. Amazing work. I am so proud of you. You did awesome. I just know it. It's normal to be sore the next day, especially in your upper body, your shoulders. So take the necessary rest before you begin your practice again. Always work within your limits. Don't overdo it. Getting into a handstand takes time and practice, and the journey is so worth it. So there's no rush. It's all fun every step of the way. Once again, my name is Sonia. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, where I teach yoga, tantra, kundalini, and spirituality related topics. So be sure to check it out at yoga.bysonia. Otherwise, I wish you all a glorious rest of your day and keep being awesome. Bye.